Bolivia's President Evo Morales has received an honorary degree in Venezuela's capital, Caracas. Morales was acknowledged for his leadership in the region and for his solidarity with Venezuela. The president accepted the distinctions a day before the inauguration ceremony of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. At his arrival in the country, Morales was greeted by Venezuelan officials. Minutes later, he talked about his support for the Venezuelan government, in particular against U.S. interventionism and the importance of the revolutionary processes across Latin America.
We have a historic responsibility to defend our democratic processes, our revolutionary processes, revolutions based on voting and the will of our people. It saddens me to see that imperial powers are still trying to make us fight with each other, be it with Bolivians, Latin Americans, Venezuelans. But as a people, we have the obligation to defend our independence, our sovereignty. So we salute this revolutionary people, the children of Bolivar, the children of Chavez. We have come to defend our liberation.
And just a day before President Maduro is to take office for his second term, he outlined his diplomatic policies and vision for his people in the coming years. Maduro strongly condemned the Lima group, calling them a cartel and saying that what they are doing is illegitimate. He also gave the group a 48-hour ultimatum to rectify its refusal of his new government.
All the members of the Lima cartel received this diplomatic protest where we demand a rectification of their position on Venezuela in 48 hours, or the government of Venezuela will take the most urgent and crude diplomatic measures to defend the integrity, sovereignty, and dignity of our nation. 48 hours. The governments of the Lima cartel to rectify their interventionist and rude policy. The government of Venezuela has clearly alerted the governments of the Lima cartel, saying that if they do not rectify their position on the Venezuelan jurisdictional sea and its pretended position of delivering that sea by public declaration to the Republic of Guyana, we will take the strongest measures that are possible in diplomacy. We have talked clearly. This is unacceptable for our people.
And the ruling party of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has shown its support for the government of Venezuela. In a statement, the Unity Labour Party, headed by Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, said that Maduro was elected in free, fair and competitive elections. They also condemned, quote, the imperial political forces and their allies, who have questioned the legitimacy of President Maduro. The party says these forces are lobbying for a regime change in order to seize Venezuelan oil and other resources. Human rights groups in Guatemala have applauded the Constitutional Court for overturning the government's decision to expel a UN-backed anti-corruption mission from the country. Activists gathered in front of the court to support the ruling and the work of the International Commission Against Impunity. Activists say the lack of governors and growing corruption have contributed to the increase in the number of people leaving Guatemala in hopes of a better future. Our correspondent in Guatemala City, Mario Rosales, has more details.
The Constitutional Court has announced a resolution to suspend the decision of President Jimmy Morales to end the agreement with the United Nations-backed International Commission Against Impunity. 4 judges voted in favor as the court's president, Dina Ochoa, voted against it. There are still questions of whether President Morales will follow the court's resolution, which allows the members of the UN Commission to continue investigating and working in the country. The commission was established in 2006 with the authority to conduct independent investigations and work with the country's prosecutors. It has often clashed with Morales, whose National Convergence Front is close to military officers responsible for many human rights violations during the country's civil war.
And now President Morales will likely face legal actions for his decision to expel the Anti-Corruption Commission.
The Constitutional Court of Guatemala has presented legal actions against President Jimmy Morales.
after the agreement with the International Commission Against Impunity illegal. Legal experts say the president did not follow proper legal parameters to make such a decision.
President Morales broke international public law because he didn't follow the Vienna Convention of Legal Rights and Treaties. He had 12 months to file a complaint, and he did not fulfill the fundamental principles of this law.
The Constitutional Court ordered Jimmy Morales to allow the UN Commission to continue with their investigation. Social leaders say he's disobeying the highest legal institution of the nation, which they consider to be a crime.
No one is above the law. We must submit to the Constitution and to the legal system. We ask President Morales to reconsider the situation and not to continue sinking the country's sovereignty.
In the country's recent history, no president has disobeyed a resolution from the Constitutional Court. In 2018, President Morales said he would allow the UN Commission to carry out an investigation until September 2019. Different social sectors think it's unreasonable to expel the Commission before the established deadline.
The law must be imperative, and that means that no one is above it. Even a president with popular support cannot break the Constitution. We need boundaries. We can't break our legal system.
Guatemala signed an agreement with the UN in 2006 to create an international commission against impunity to operate in the country. This is the first time that a commission investigated the family of a president, in this case, the family of Jimmy Morales.
And gas stations in some parts of Mexico have ran out of fuel as the government continues to fight fuel theft. The government has temporarily closed down some state pipelines in a bid to end with a theft that has costed the country an estimated $3 billion in 2017. People in Mexico City and central areas of the country spent hours waiting to fill up their tanks at the fuel stations that are still open. Meanwhile, the Mexican president has warned people to remain calm and refrain from panicking about the shortages until the crackdown of fuel theft is wrapped up.
It would be easy to reopen the pipelines and say it is back to normal. But we would do that knowing that they are still stealing it.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Bolivian government and social movements have risen to the defense of indigenous people who were the targets of racist remarks made by a Brazilian lawmaker.
Rodrigo Amorim, a member of the party led by President Jair Bolsonaro, has called for the expulsion of the indigenous community from Brazil. The Brazilian lawmaker has told so-called Indian sympathizers that they could go live in Bolivia if they disagreed with the renewal plans intended for native Brazilian territories. Several social institutions have described Amorim's remarks as racist and disrespectful.
Whether it's in Brazil, in Bolivia, in the continent, this is the level of disrespect and hate they have towards indigenous people. Of course, we are very proud because in Bolivia, indigenous people are the foundation of this plurinational state.
Indigenous communities are also firing a salvo at the Brazilian legislator.
In Brazil, there are 7 million in the Amazon and 255 indigenous towns and more than 100 native languages. Then President Bolsonaro has had 40% of support from Afro-Brazilian and indigenous people.
Foreign Affairs Minister Diego Pari is also strongly condemning the verbal attack on indigenous communities. This while he assures that action will be taken. He says the state is mandated to defend and promote the rights of indigenous people.
Bolivia is a diverse country. Bolivia is a country that respects, acknowledges, and strengthens its indigenous people. And we have to continue strengthening these vulnerable communities because they are the essence of Bolivian plurinationality.
The population is made up more than 50% indigenous people and campesinos. In fact, in 2006, for the first time in history, the indigenous government of Evo Morales was elected into office. He has promoted a new constitution that recognizes its 36 indigenous communities and states, as well as their native language and Spanish.
Peru's interim Attorney General, Zoraida Ábalos, has declared a state of emergency in the Attorney General's office. This decision came on Tuesday, the same day former Attorney General Pedro Chavarri resigned from the post. Ábalos said this measure is meant to recover citizens' trust. She also gave her support to the prosecutors investigating the Odebrecht case.
Until the National Justice Council is installed, I have to declare...
Our correspondent in Lima, Jaime Herrera, has more.
Zoraida Ábalos was named interim attorney general after Pedro Chavarri resigned on Tuesday, and her first decision was to declare a state of emergency in the public ministry. On its part, Congressional is proposing a law to reform the Judiciary and Justice Council. This will determine how magistrates and Supreme Court judges are chosen, as well as the Attorney General. Currently, 3 out of 5 judges, part of the head judges from the Attorney General's office, are being investigated for corruption cases. It's important to mention that President Martín Vizcarra will address the nation regarding the latest events. People are expecting Congress to approve the judiciary's reform. Meanwhile, the Congress's president, Daniel Salaverry, has announced his resignation from the Popular Force Party, citing differences.
Tonight, I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Every day, Customs and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has said that promoting development in Mexico and Central America is the best way to confront the migratory crisis gripping the region.
The wall is part of the migratory problem, but we want to solve the migration problem by attacking the causes. What we've proposed has been made very clear. We are persuading and convincing the government of the United States that the best thing is for the development of Central American countries and of Mexico, that there be productive activity and jobs in Central America and in our country, that migration be made optional, not obligatory. That's our stance. But then, there are those who want us to fight. We want to find a relationship that is always friendly with the government of the United States.
A Guarani community in Paraguay is camping in capital Asunción to protest after being evicted from their territory. They blame Brazilian businessmen who, according to them, have taken over their lands.
Families of the Mbia Guarani community known as Tacuari are camping in the middle of Asunción. They have been protesting for 3 months, asking the government to give them their territory back. But the government of Mario Abdo Benitez hasn't helped them until now.
We are fighting for our ancestral lands. We were evicted from our lands. Men hired by Brazilian businessmen did this. They also killed one of our leaders, Isidoro Barrios. His body wasn't even returned. This happened 5 months ago. The government hasn't done anything.
According to official figures, 76% of indigenous people in the country live in extreme poverty. Many moved to the city in search of basic services and help that the state is not providing in their territories.
They say we are violent. They say that because we are defending our rights, because we are not taking more injustice. Our youth now know they cannot remain silent. We need to defend our rights.
The Guarani community was expelled from the country's border with Brazil, an area that has seen an increase of soya monocultures. A special report from the Olo Nos Ruralistas Observatory has shown that 14% of indigenous territories are in the hands of Brazilian businessmen.
These people think they own Paraguay. They don't respect our state authorities. The Attorney General, who should defend us and our rights, hasn't done anything for us, not even politicians or judges. We are dying because we have no support.
The families that are camping in Asunción say they want to return to their territory. They also announced they will reach out to other community groups to ask them to support their protests.
In Guyana, the government and the opposition have reached an agreement regarding the no-confidence vote against the ruling coalition. Both parties discussed general and local elections as well as the functioning of the National Assembly and the government. President David Granger provided an update after the 1-hour-long meeting between himself and opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo.
As you know, the government has had legal recourse to the courts in order to determine the validity of the vote in the National Assembly on the 21st of December. This is quite legitimate, and there's no intention on the part of the government to derail the constitutional or legislative process. We have agreed that the two sides will continue to work together to engage GCOM to ensure that elections are held within the administrative capabilities of the Guyana Elections Commission. I would say in conclusion that we've had a successful engagement. Both the leader of the opposition and the president are concerned about the situation. We would like to assure the public in Guyana that we are working to a solution which they'll be satisfied with. The public interest is our paramount concern.
According to official records, Portuguese colonizers reached Brazil for the first time on April 22nd, 1500. While some books say that this marked the discovery of the country, indigenous people remember their ancestors inhabited Brazil for centuries before this. Let's take a look at the story of one of the indigenous communities in the state of Bahia, the first who resisted the European invasion.
It was here, at the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, in Barra do Cai, where first contact was made between the Portuguese and the indigenous people of the region, the Pataxos. This happened in the year 1500, which led to the colonization of their land and the formation of Brazil. The beach is known officially as the Beach of Discovery, a name that symbolizes the invisibility and historical denial of indigenous people. So the question remains, who discovered Brazil?
It was indigenous people. They say it was the Portuguese, but it's not true. It was indigenous people.
The Pataxo people, our people, were already living there.
Pataxo have suffered historical attacks in their lands, resisting ambushes and massacres during which many indigenous people died. Today, there are more than 11,000 Pataxos living in various villages. Their fight has guaranteed the preservation of the native forest, but also their survival as a people.
They undermine our people with religious and military power. A display of this power was a mass massacre, the so-called Fire of 1951 in Barra Velá, where they first settled a village and then they massacred people to the point that the victims did not want to return to their own lands.
The organization, self-assuredness, and an ancestral warrior spirit of the Pataxos is manifested on the youth, who are taking over leadership from the elders.
We see the suffering our people are living in. That is why it's very important for us to continue with our fight, because we can't stop demanding what our people need.
Resisting the deforestation of its land for the past 518 years is one of their battles. Under the Pascual Mountain, the sacred place for the Pataxos continues to be under threat.
This is our land, and we're not going to leave it. There isn't a law to evict landowners.
The Pataxos, proud of their history and resistance, currently face the insecurity of the new far-right-wing government in Brazil, which has made clear its position in regards to indigenous people. Nonetheless, their tradition demonstrates that Pataxos are aware of the importance of the fight for their rights.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump has stormed out of a meeting with Democratic congressional leaders in the White House. This happened after they refused to support funding for the U.S.-Mexico border. Posting on his Twitter account, Trump called it a total waste of time. The meeting with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer was yet another failed attempt to end with the government shutdown. These will leave some 800,000 federal workers without pay this week for the first time since the shutdown began. Meanwhile, the Democrats have accused President Trump of using U.S. citizens as hostages in his quest to build the border wall.
And he said, if I open up the government, you won't do what I want. That's cruel, that's callous, and that's using millions of innocent people as sort of pawns, and it was wrong.
Many federal workers will not be receiving their paychecks, and what that means in their lives is tragic in terms of their credit rating, paying their mortgage, paying their rent, paying their car payment, paying their children's tuition, and the rest. The president seems to be insensitive to that.
Riot police have been deployed at the offices of the Democratic Republic of Congo's Electoral Commission. The country is anxiously waiting for the results of the vote of December 30th. As the commission said earlier, the results will be announced on Wednesday. The presidential election was meant to lead the country's first democratic transfer of powers in its 59 years of independence.
About these rumors between Felix and Kaliba, we want peace and calm. If Felix has won, then they need to prepare the handover of power in a civilized way. We don't want people to die when they announce the election results, blood to be spilled, because we are fed up. We are tired and we're waiting for a peaceful announcement, which will allow us to rejoice rather than cry because we are fed up.
People demanded French President Emmanuel Macron steps down during his visit to a new handball sports facility. Demonstrators protested near the venue where the visit was taking place. Macron has been under increasing pressure from the Yellow Vest movement, which began in November last year in response to the government's decision to introduce annual increases to fuel taxes.
I think that Macron keeps saying that he was elected and that he represents the French people, but he doesn't want to talk with us at all. That's one thing. On the other hand, he has sent his riot police and gendarmes to gas us, and I think that you have been gassed yourselves as well. Even though there were no incidents of violence, nothing happened. We were nice. We were nicely waiting for Macron to arrive.
And finally, a baby penguin under the care of two same-sex couples in Australia has taken its first swimming lessons. The baby and its parents belong to Sea Life Aquarium in Sydney. The foster parents, two male penguins, made headlines last year when aquarium staff gave them the egg following a successful trial. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.